As soon as class ended, Aiden rushed out of the classroom without paying attention to who was walking toward him. In his panic, he accidentally kissed the first person in front of him. The entire hallway went silent. Everyone froze because the person he had just kissed was Mushihon, the most admired and intimidating girl on campus. The second Aiden realized who it was, he knew he was in serious trouble. Even so, he refused to let go. If he did, he would be dead anyway. A few seconds earlier, a strange system had forced a mission on him. It gave him 10 seconds to find someone to kiss, and if he failed before the 30-second limit, his body would explode. After looking around at the crowd of guys from the electrical engineering department, he decided there was no chance he was sacrificing his first kiss that way. With no other option, he ran outside, never expecting Mushihon to be the unlucky target. The countdown finally reached 0, and Aiden quickly stepped back. He awkwardly tried to brush it off as a harmless prank. Mushihon clearly was not buying it. She threw a punch straight at him, but Aiden reacted fast enough to stop it before it landed. Holding her soft hand only made him admire her even more. That reaction made Mushihon even angrier. She tried kicking him next, but he blocked that too. Aiden casually teased that if she liked him, she did not have to be so aggressive. The students watching could not believe what they were seeing. From their perspective, the two looked far too close, and since Mushihon was not breaking free, rumors started spreading instantly. Some were already convinced they had been secretly dating. Embarrassed by everyone's gossip, Mushihon demanded that Aiden let her go. Aiden refused unless she promised not to attack him again. She showed no interest in making that promise, so neither of them backed down. Then, to everyone's surprise, tears suddenly rolled down Mushihon's face. She had always been treated like a princess, and had never been embarrassed or restrained like this before. Seeing her cry caught Aiden completely off guard, and he immediately released her. Mushihon wanted to hit him again, but she knew she could not win. She swallowed her anger, shot him a murderous glare, and silently vowed that one day she would make him pay. After wiping away her tears, Mushihon turned around and left without another word. Outside the school gates, she got into a black Bentley. The driver noticed her red eyes and asked if someone had bullied her, but she stayed quiet. Instead, she picked up her phone and ordered someone to bring Tianis to her immediately. In her heart, she had already decided that Aiden would pay for what happened. Meanwhile, back in his dorm, Aiden lay on his bed replaying the scene in his head. He could not stop thinking about Mushihon's long legs. Everything about her was perfect except for her constant habit of threatening to kill people. While daydreaming, he suddenly remembered that he had not collected the system reward. He opened the system interface and found a single skill card called Piercing Cloud Fist. Without thinking twice, he activated it. A powerful wave of energy rushed through his body. As the skill merged with him, every bone became much stronger and denser. Aiden was stunned by the change. He joked to himself that with a body this tough, he could probably make a fortune doing construction work. Just then, someone shouted his name from outside the dorm. Aiden recognized Mushihon's voice immediately. At first, he thought about ignoring her, figuring there was no way a girl could enter the men's dorm. The next second, the dorm door burst open. Mushihon walked straight inside and demanded that he come with her. Aiden complained that she had not even given him time to answer and reminded her that this was the men's dorm, but she ignored him completely. She reached for his arm, but Aiden grabbed her wrist again and refused to go anywhere, saying he just wanted to sleep. Her patience finally ran out. Then, just like before, her expression suddenly changed, and tears started forming in her eyes. She acted hurt, reminding him that after kissing her and grabbing her leg earlier, he would not even agree to take a short walk with her. Aiden immediately gave in. He could handle her anger, but not her tears. The moment he agreed, Mushihon grabbed his arm and hurried him out of the dorm. As they walked across campus together, everyone who saw them started gossiping. Some were convinced they had become a couple, while others pointed out that Mushihon's wealthy family made Aiden unbelievably lucky. From a distance, the two looked surprisingly close, making the rumors spread even faster. Aiden looked at the crowd staring at them and let out a helpless sigh. He asked Mushihon to let go of his arm, joking that if all these rumors stopped him from finding a girlfriend, she would have to take responsibility. Without hesitation, she replied that she would. Aiden quickly turned that down, saying her angry looks alone had already scared him enough. Mushihan forced herself to stay calm. She only needed to get him to the planned location. After that, he would learn the hard way why she brought him there. Aiden asked where they were going. She told him it was the grove behind the school. The moment he heard that, he teased her. The place was famous as a dating spot for couples, and they had only known each other for a few hours. He even joked that letting him touch her leg again would settle everything. Mushihon immediately scolded him for twisting her words. She insisted she only meant taking a walk. Aiden argued that she was the one dragging him to a romantic spot, not the other way around. Pretending to leave, he made her apologize before continuing. Soon they reached the quiet grove. It was dark, hidden from view, and well known as the favorite place for campus couples. Aiden looked around and jokingly claimed he was afraid of the dark. He stepped closer as if he wanted to hold her, but before he could, Mushihon pushed him away and called him a shameless creep. Aiden defended himself, saying he was only nervous because he could barely see anything. Hearing that, Mushihon secretly took it as the perfect chance. Without warning, someone attacked from behind. Luckily, Aiden's strengthened body reacted instantly. He moved aside with ease, and the surprise punch missed completely. The attacker, Tianis, was stunned. After decades of martial arts training, he had expected an easy win against an ordinary college student. Mushihon was just as surprised. She immediately realized Aiden had lied about not being able to see. Frustrated, she ordered Tianis to tie him up. Certain the first miss had been bad luck, Tianis followed up with a powerful kick. Instead, a painful crack echoed through the grove. The next moment, Tianis was on the ground, clutching his injured leg and screaming in pain. Aiden casually mocked him, saying Mushihon's backup was far too weak and should go home before embarrassing her any further. Mushihon barely heard him. She stared at Aiden in disbelief. Tianis was one of her family's strongest bodyguards, yet he had been defeated almost instantly. Unable to hide her curiosity, she asked if he had trained in martial arts. Aiden casually claimed he had learned everything from online videos, while secretly knowing that the real reason was the mysterious system. Aiden could hardly believe how powerful a top-grade combat skill was. He joked to himself that the next time someone tried to bully him, he would crush them without breaking a sweat. After looking around and seeing no more attackers, he turned to leave. He figured it was time to head back, since staying up late was bad for his health. Behind him, Mushihon watched helplessly as he walked away, unable to stop him. Then a sudden scream echoed through the grove. At the same time, the system appeared again. A new mission popped up, ordering Aiden to rescue Mushihon in exchange for a grand wheel reward. Before the system could finish threatening punishment for refusing, Aiden accepted with a sigh. He complained that it always used explosions to force him into doing things, and suggested it skip the threats next time. The system immediately switched his settings to automatically accept future missions. Meanwhile, Mushihon struggled against a group of kidnappers. She warned them they were making a huge mistake by kidnapping her in Changcheng. The leader laughed it off. He made it clear they had come specifically for her and did not care how powerful her family was. As long as she was in their hands, her status meant nothing. While talking, the man reached toward her face. Before he could touch her, a sharp pain shot through his arm. Aiden had arrived. He casually remarked that the kidnapper had no right to touch someone he had not even touched himself. The leader cursed and ordered 2 of his men to break Aiden's legs. Aiden sighed, wondering why every gang seemed obsessed with attacking people's legs. Mushihon quickly warned him that those 2 men had already defeated Tianis with ease. Aiden confidently told her to leave everything to him before charging straight at them. For a brief moment, Mushihon was stunned. Despite knowing how dangerous the kidnappers were, Aiden had rushed in without the slightest hesitation. A few seconds later, both attackers were already lying unconscious on the ground. Aiden casually walked back with a smug smile and asked if that had been impressive. Instead of praising him, Mushihon simply told him to untie her. As Aiden started working on the ropes, the leader slowly walked over. Without even looking up, Aiden warned that even if all the remaining men attacked together, they still would not win. He advised them to leave before things got even worse. The leader simply let out a cold laugh, making Aiden finally lose his patience. Aiden was just about to attack when something caught his eye. A gun was pointed directly at his forehead. His confidence disappeared instantly. He forced out an awkward smile and immediately claimed he had only been joking. Without wasting another second, He quickly tied Mushihon back up and even used the remaining rope to tie his own wrists. After finishing, he proudly showed the knots off as if asking for approval. Satisfied, Scarface lowered the gun and ordered his men to take both of them away. Mushihon stared at Aiden in disbelief before angrily bumping into him and asking what he was doing. She thought they had the upper hand. Aiden quietly reminded her that fists meant nothing against the gun. No matter how strong he was, he had no intention of testing whether his head could stop a bullet. Only then did Mushihon fully realize the kidnappers were armed. Her face immediately turned pale. She told them she was the only one they wanted and begged them to let Aiden go since he had nothing to do with the situation. Scarface laughed. He explained that Aiden had become part of the problem the moment he knocked out 2 of his men. There was no chance he would be allowed to leave alive. The kidnappers shoved both of them into a van. Aiden knew Scarface was not planning to kill him just for revenge. The real reason was simple. He could not risk leaving any witnesses behind. Sitting inside the van, Aiden felt completely hopeless. Out of every mission the system could have assigned, it had chosen rescuing Mushihon. Instead, he had failed to save her and ended up getting himself captured too. He could not help wondering if the system had been trying to ruin his life from the very beginning. After the van started moving, the kidnappers covered both of their heads with black bags. Although Aiden could not see anything, he clearly heard Scarface making a phone call. Scarface reported that the job was finished and asked when the payment would arrive. The person on the other end calmly replied that the money would be transferred after the Mu family gave up a valuable piece of downtown property. Until then, the captives had to stay alive and securely locked away. Any mistake would cost more than just the payment. Scarface was clearly annoyed by the warning and fired back, reminding the caller that the Black Dragon Gang was not a group to be looked down on. He even pointed out that his own boss treated the man with respect. The caller ignored the complaint and simply ended the call. Frustrated, Scarface slammed his fist against the van, but there was little he could do. The deal had already been made, and the person behind it clearly held the upper hand. At that same moment, inside the Mu family's estate on the outskirts of Changcheng, a man rushed upstairs in a panic. The man hurried to the office and knocked on the door. Mu Qingfeng was sitting at his desk, reviewing the proposal for the downtown development project without even looking up. The subordinate rushed inside and reported that something had happened. According to the latest call from Awu, the young miss had disappeared and was believed to have been kidnapped. Mu Qingfeng's hand froze on the mouse. His expression immediately turned serious as he asked where Mushihon had gone. The subordinate admitted they were still investigating since the report had only come in a few minutes earlier. Mu Qingfeng's face darkened. He ordered Chen Feng to take charge of the search and coldly warned that failure was not an option. After the subordinate left, Mu Qingfeng completely lost interest in the project documents. Just then, his phone rang. Seeing an unfamiliar number, he answered. A calm voice greeted him before casually mentioning the downtown project, pointing out that the Mu family had already invested billions into it. The moment Mu Qingfeng recognized the voice, his tone turned icy. He immediately asked Zhong Yucheng if Mushihon had been kidnapped because of him. Zhong Yucheng denied everything with a laugh. He claimed he had only called to inform the Mu family that the Zhong family also wanted the downtown property, and politely suggested they withdraw before getting caught in unnecessary trouble. Mu Qingfeng refused without hesitation. He reminded Zhong Yucheng that the Mu family had already committed most of its resources to the project and would never back down because of a single phone call. Zhong Yucheng's attitude instantly became threatening. He remarked that everyone said Mu Qingfeng cared about his sister more than anything else. If that was really true, he should think carefully before making his next decision, because the next call would not be so forgiving. The call ended immediately afterward. Without wasting a second, Mu Qingfeng contacted Chen Feng. Chen Feng reported that they had already identified a black van without local license plates based on Awu's description and were tracking its route. He also mentioned another incident involving Mushihon earlier that day, although he was unsure whether it was related to the kidnapping. Mu Qingfeng asked for the details. Chen Feng told him to check the trending videos on Changcheng University's campus network. He also revealed that Mushihon had requested the personal file of a student earlier that day. Although he still did not understand the full situation, Mu Qingfeng ordered Chengfeng to send over the student's information immediately. He made it clear that before sunrise, he wanted to know exactly where Mushihon was. After ending the call, he opened the trending campus video. As the footage played, his eyes widened in disbelief. A moment later, his furious roar echoed through the room as he swore he would personally deal with the reckless student responsible. After a long and rough ride, the van finally came to a stop. The kidnappers pulled the black bags off their heads, and Aiden found himself inside an abandoned factory. Several men guarded the entrances, while others sat around a small table, completely focused on a card game. Aiden quietly looked around the building, but did not see Scarface anywhere. Suddenly, Mushihon nudged him with her foot. She quietly called his name, asking him to rescue her. Aiden whispered back, telling her to stop kicking him since he could hear her perfectly. Looking straight at him, Mushihon urged him to untie them. She had already noticed the knot around his wrists was fake and could be undone at any time. Aiden was a little surprised she figured it out. Earlier, he had intentionally tied himself with a slipknot to fool Scarface. All it would take was a light pull to free himself. Even so, he refused to move. He reminded Mushihon that not long ago, she had wanted him beaten up. He questioned why he should risk helping her now. Growing anxious, Mushihon pointed out that he had already kissed her and even grabbed her leg. Aiden remained completely unmoved. He even joked that she was not giving him a very convincing reason. His teasing instantly made Mushihon furious. She accused him of insulting her and tried to bump into him in anger. Instead, she lost her balance. Her face landed directly on Aiden's lap. Aiden froze for a moment, before awkwardly joking that it was lucky her face was so soft or he would have been seriously hurt. The moment Mushihon realized what had happened, she immediately jumped back. Her face turned bright red with embarrassment. She could not believe something so humiliating had happened with Aiden again. After an awkward silence, she warned him never to tell anyone. Aiden casually agreed, saying he had no interest in damaging his own reputation either. For some reason, that answer only made Mushihon even more annoyed. She immediately ordered him not to chase other girls. Aiden stared at her in confusion, asking why his love life had anything to do with her since they were not dating. Flustered, Mushihon struggled to explain herself. She finally claimed she still had not gotten revenge on him, so until that happened, he was not allowed to pursue anyone else. Aiden could only sigh and sarcastically agree, before ignoring her completely. Just then, footsteps echoed through the factory. Scarface walked inside with a gun still in his hand. Aiden had been waiting for the perfect chance to escape, but that weapon kept him from making a move. Dealing with the ordinary thugs was easy enough, but even he had no answer for a bullet. As soon as Scarface entered, several gang members gathered around him and invited him to join their card game. Scarface dismissed them without a second thought. Scarface kicked one of his men aside and coldly ordered them to take Aiden upstairs and finish him first. The gang members complained under their breath, but quickly dragged him away. Aiden calmly stood up and smiled, joking that his legs had simply gone numb after sitting for so long. One of the thugs kicked him and asked why he was still smiling when he was about to die. Aiden casually replied that if things really ended here, someone should at least send flowers to Michael, since he had always been a fan. Meanwhile, because Mushihon was still missing, Mu Qingfeng remained awake late into the night. Around 1 in the morning, Chen Feng finally called. Mu Qingfeng answered immediately and asked if they had found her. Chen Feng admitted they had not. The kidnappers had carefully avoided surveillance cameras by driving through a tunnel near Baihe Mountain. Although the van had been located at a hotel in town, Mushihon was no longer inside. Based on the investigation, they narrowed the search down to 3 possible locations: Baihe Village, an abandoned factory, and a cave on the mountain. Mu Qingfeng stood up without hesitation and ordered everyone to head for Baihe Mountain immediately. His eyes were filled with killing intent. The Tong family had crossed the one line they never should have touched. Everyone in Changcheng knew that Mushihon was the person Mu Qingfeng cared about most. Hurting her was the fastest way to provoke his wrath. Back at the abandoned factory, Scarface personally escorted Aiden to the 2nd floor. Moonlight poured through the broken windows. Aiden looked around and joked that all they needed now was a bottle of wine to complete the atmosphere. Scarface responded by kicking him and telling him to stop talking. He then pulled out his phone and showed Aiden the video of him kissing Mushihan. Aiden stared at the screen in disbelief. He could not believe a group of kidnappers had taken the campus rumors so seriously. He insisted once again that the kiss had been nothing but an accident. Scarface ignored the explanation. Instead, he pressed the gun against Aiden's forehead and demanded that he admit he and Mushihan were a couple. He promised to make the execution quick if Aiden cooperated. Just then, Scarface received another phone call. During the conversation, Aiden overheard that he had been instructed not to dispose of the body yet. More importantly, Scarface casually mentioned that this was the only gun he had brought and that he would rather not fire it unless absolutely necessary. The moment Aiden heard those words, everything became clear. A slow smile spread across his face. If there was only one gun, then Scarface was not nearly as untouchable as he had seemed. Seeing Aiden smile made Scarface furious. He tightened his finger around the trigger. Instead of backing away, Aiden confidently stepped forward. He challenged Scarface to fire if he really dared, pointing out that a gunshot would immediately attract attention and leave Scarface with no way to explain the situation to everyone waiting outside. Scarface hesitated for a split second. Aiden calmly raised his now free hands and waved them in front of him with a confident smile. He asked if Scarface still believed he could win. Panicking, Scarface instinctively pulled the trigger. The gun fired, but Aiden had already moved. Before Scarface could react, Aiden was standing beside him. One punch crushed Scarface's wrist. One kick broke his leg. Aiden reminded him that since Scarface had enjoyed kicking him earlier, it was only fair to return the favor. Downstairs, the sound of the gunshot echoed through the factory. Mushihan's heart sank. She immediately assumed Aiden had been shot. Tears streamed down her face as she blamed him for making a promise to rescue her, only to lose his own life. Driven by panic, she somehow found the strength to break free and rushed upstairs, determined to avenge him. When she reached the second floor, the room was too dark to see clearly. She spotted someone sitting on top of another person and throwing punch after punch. Without thinking, she charged forward and bit the person's arm as hard as she could. Aiden cried out in pain. Looking down, he realized Mushihan had latched onto him. He asked if she was secretly part dog, since she had bitten the person trying to save her. The familiar voice made Mushihan freeze. She quickly let go and stared at him in disbelief. Realizing he was alive, she finally relaxed, tears of relief filling her eyes. Seeing her laugh and cry at the same time, Aiden could only shake his head. He complained that he had never met anyone as reckless as her and pointed at the bite marks she had left on his arm. After finishing with Scarface, Aiden gathered all the remaining gang members downstairs. Instead of beating them up, he lined them up and forced them into a squatting position. Holding the gun in his hand, he ordered everyone to sing. Anyone who was too quiet would be punished. The once arrogant thugs had no choice but to sing together in tiny, miserable voices. When one of them became too quiet, Aiden fired a warning shot beside the man's foot and ordered him to sing louder. Just as Aiden was enjoying himself, the system appeared once again. The mission had been completed. This time, the reward was a Shadow Hawk possession card. The name alone caught Aiden's attention. After using it, countless memories of legendary marksmanship flooded his mind. The gun in his hand suddenly felt as natural as an extension of his own body. To test the skill, he fired another shot, sending the bullet perfectly between the same thug's feet without touching him. Satisfied with the result, Aiden told the gang members to stop singing and ordered them to get up and perform moonwalks instead. A short while later, Mushihan returned from the bathroom. The first thing she saw was Aiden happily bullying the defeated kidnappers. Her sense of justice immediately took over. She raised her leg, ready to kick him, and threatened to knock all his teeth out. Aiden did not even bother standing up. Aiden simply raised one hand and pressed it against Mushihan's forehead, keeping her just far enough away that she could not reach him. He casually teased that with her short legs, she was only wasting her energy trying to kick him. At that moment, several Mengshi SUVs screeched to a stop outside the abandoned factory. Mu Qingfeng stepped out, leading a heavily armed rescue team. He immediately ordered everyone to surround the building and leave no escape route. Within seconds, multiple squads silently spread out and secured every side of the factory. As Mu Qingfeng approached the entrance, Chen Feng handed him a tablet displaying live drone footage. Chen Feng looked hesitant as he explained that the drone had already mapped the inside of the building, but something about the situation made no sense. Impatient, Mu Qingfeng grabbed the tablet himself. The night vision footage left him speechless. More than 10 tied-up gang members were squatting in neat rows on the first floor while singing together. Even stranger, one of them was awkwardly performing a moonwalk in the middle of the room. For a moment, Mu Qingfeng could not understand what he was looking at. It looked less like a kidnapping scene and more like a bizarre talent show. Shaking off the confusion, he immediately asked where Mu Shihon was. Chen Feng switched the camera to another angle. Behind a large pillar, Mu Shihon was repeatedly trying to attack Aiden, while Aiden casually held her back with one hand. The sight instantly filled Mu Qingfeng with rage. He became convinced that Aiden had approached Mu Shihon on purpose, lured her away, and worked with the Zhong family to stage the kidnapping. Without another thought, he demanded an infrared sniper rifle. Chen Feng tried to explain that Aiden probably was not involved, but Mu Qingfeng refused to listen. All he could see was his sister being bullied. Left with no choice, Chen Feng handed over the rifle. Mu Qingfeng slowly advanced toward the factory while aiming through the scope. When the rest of the team prepared to follow, he stopped them with a gesture. He intended to deal with Aiden personally. Inside the factory, Aiden was still laughing as he teased Mu Shihon, daring her to land a hit. Mu Shihon angrily fired back, insisting that he was the short one, before demanding he let her go so she could beat him up. Just then, a bright red laser dot appeared on Aiden's forehead. A cold voice echoed through the factory, ordering him not to move. Aiden instinctively looked toward the entrance. The moment he saw Mu Qingfeng slowly walking in with an infrared sniper rifle pointed directly at him, his expression changed. He immediately realized he had let his guard down. Just as Aiden was trying to think of a way out, someone suddenly crashed into him from the front. The two of them hit the ground together. When he looked closer, he realized it was Mu Shihon. She had tackled him without warning. Aiden reminded her that someone was aiming a rifle at his head, and this was the worst possible time for something like that. To his surprise, Mu Shihon stayed unusually calm. She quietly told him she knew it was an infrared rifle and urged him to run while she held the shooter back. The girl who had been trying to beat him up only moments ago was now risking herself to protect him. That caught Aiden completely off guard. For the first time, he genuinely felt she was not as unreasonable as he had thought. Without another word, he pulled her behind him. He told her that as long as he was there, she did not need to stand in front of him. Instead of escaping, Aiden dragged Mu Shihon behind a large pillar and confidently told her to watch what happened next. Before the person outside could get any closer, Aiden suddenly stepped out from cover. A gunshot echoed through the factory. The figure at the entrance was hit and immediately fell to the ground. Aiden ducked back behind the pillar with a satisfied grin, proudly giving himself credit for the shot. Thanks to the Shadowhawk's skill, he had no fear of a gunfight. But before he could celebrate, chaos erupted outside. Dozens of voices shouted at once. Within seconds, armed men rushed into the factory from every direction. Aiden's confident expression disappeared. There were far too many people, and he knew he did not have enough bullets to deal with all of them. Then Chen Feng's voice rang out from outside. He urgently informed Mu Shihon that the person Aiden had just shot was actually her brother, Mu Qingfeng, who had come to rescue her. Both Mu Shihon and Aiden froze. Aiden felt as though his mind had gone completely blank. He could not believe the person he had just shot was Mu Qingfeng. About 10 minutes later, Mu Qingfeng was leaning against the wall, catching his breath. A trace of blood rested at the corner of his mouth, but he still managed a faint smile. He admitted that the shot had hurt more than he expected. Looking at Aiden, he admitted that the attack had been incredibly accurate. If he had been standing any closer, or had not been wearing a bulletproof vest, the outcome would have been far worse. Mu Shihon knelt beside her brother and carefully examined the dent left in the protective plate. She asked with genuine concern if he was all right. Mu Qingfeng let out a helpless snort. He pointed out that only moments earlier he had been giving her the perfect chance to get revenge on Aiden, yet instead of taking it, She had chosen to protect someone she had only known for half a day. The more he thought about it, the more frustrated he became, accusing her of siding with a complete stranger over her own family. In reality, after reviewing the drone footage, Mu Qingfeng already knew Aiden had nothing to do with the kidnapping. He had only pointed the gun at him because he hated seeing his sister getting teased and wanted to give her a chance to get even. Instead, Mu Shihon had thrown herself in front of Aiden, genuinely afraid her brother would shoot him. Watching that happen left Mu Qingfeng with mixed emotions. It felt exactly like the saying about daughters growing up and slowly drifting away from their families. Mu Shihon lowered her head with an embarrassed expression. She explained that she had no idea the person outside was her brother. She honestly thought another kidnapper had arrived. Besides, Aiden had nearly lost his life twice trying to save her, so she had acted without thinking. Mu Qingfeng sighed and told her to stop explaining. He then turned his attention to Aiden and asked where he had learned to shoot so accurately. Aiden simply scratched his head and casually claimed he had spent too much time playing shooting games. Mu Qingfeng did not know whether to laugh or believe him. For a moment, he wondered if Aiden was secretly some legendary martial arts disciple hiding his true background. But his investigation into Aiden's past had turned up nothing unusual. That left only one unbelievable explanation. Could countless hours of gaming really produce someone with skills like that? Unable to figure it out, Mu Qingfeng decided to drop the subject. Instead, he brought up another matter. He looked straight at Aiden and asked about all the rumors involving Mu Shihon. Aiden immediately denied everything, insisting there was nothing between them. Without saying a word, Mu Qingfeng pulled out his phone and replayed the campus video of Aiden kissing Mu Shihon. The moment Aiden saw the clip, he felt like giving up. He could not understand why every person he met that night seemed determined to interrogate him with the exact same video. Standing nearby, Mu Shihon quietly looked at the screen before firmly explaining that the entire incident had been a misunderstanding. Mu Qingfeng stared at her in disbelief. He questioned how both the kiss and Aiden grabbing her leg could possibly be misunderstandings at the same time. He simply could not understand why she kept defending Aiden when he was trying to stand up for her. Mu Shihon, however, seemed focused on something completely different. In her eyes, the important part was that her brother had aimed a gun at Aiden. She barely even seemed to remember that Aiden had accidentally shot Mu Qingfeng during the rescue. Growing impatient, she told her brother to stop interfering because she would handle everything herself. Hearing that, Mu Qingfeng nearly lost all composure. His sister had almost been kidnapped, yet now she was telling him to stay out of it altogether? Just as Mu Qingfeng was about to continue, Chen Fong hurried over with the family doctor. After giving him a quick examination, the doctor let out a relieved sigh and said the injury was not serious. It was only a concussion from the impact, and with a few days of rest, he would recover completely. Only then did Chen Fong finally relax. He signaled the others to help Mu Qingfeng onto a stretcher and carry him toward the waiting vehicle. Before leaving, Chen Fong glanced at Aiden with a complicated expression. He could not help thinking that this newcomer had already managed to get close to Mu Shihong and even accidentally injured Mu Qingfeng. Life around the Mu family was probably never going to be peaceful again. Watching her brother being carried away, Mu Shihong told him to go home and rest. She promised to visit him after school. Even while lying on the stretcher, Mu Qingfeng spoke up. He told her to bring Aiden to the house for dinner that evening. Mu Shihong simply nodded. Since Aiden had risked his life to save her, she assumed her brother wanted to thank him properly. What she did not know was that Mu Qingfeng had something completely different in mind. He planned to have a long talk with Aiden face to face. Meanwhile, Aiden quietly avoided making eye contact with Mu Qingfeng. Out of nowhere, he suddenly sneezed. It was the middle of summer, yet an unexplained chill ran down his spine. Looking up, he caught Mu Qingfeng staring at him through the SUV window with a cold, unreadable expression. The look alone made Aiden feel as if he were being watched by a predator. He could not help wondering what terrible crime he had committed. As far as he was concerned, he had only kissed Mu Shihon because the system forced him to. Yet everyone around her now seemed ready to hunt him down. A moment later, someone nudged his shoulder. Aiden snapped back to reality and realized the convoy had already left. He looked around in surprise. The rescue team had gone without taking either of them. For a second, he started imagining the worst. It was still dark. They were stranded in the middle of nowhere, and if Mushihan suddenly lost her temper again, nobody would be around to help him. Almost as if she could read his thoughts, Mushihan rolled her eyes. She explained that she had already called another driver because they would not be riding back with the others. She then reminded him to check the time. Aiden pulled out his phone and was shocked to see it was already 5 in the morning. He had not realized the entire night had disappeared. Still, after everything that had happened, he did not feel sleepy at all. When he asked where the car was, Mushihan smiled faintly. She explained that the vehicle could not reach the factory, so the driver was waiting at the foot of the mountain. They would have to walk down together. As Aiden looked at her smile, he noticed something had quietly changed about her. As they walked down the mountain together, Aiden noticed Mushihan was acting very differently. She was much calmer than before, and no longer seemed ready to fight him every few minutes. For a moment, he wondered if she had actually started liking him. The thought disappeared just as quickly. Aiden had no interest in overthinking it. His plan was simple: survive this year peacefully, then try his luck with a kind and easygoing junior next year. The moonlight shone through the trees, giving Mushihan's already fair face a soft glow. After walking in silence for a while, she suddenly turned around. At the same time, Aiden quickly looked away. She told him that her brother wanted him to come over for dinner that evening. Instead of answering, Aiden stared at her face and casually asked if she was feeling sick because her face had turned bright red. The gentle mood vanished instantly. Mushihan exploded with anger and loudly declared that she was going to kill him. By 6:30 the next morning, Jiang Hao was already awake in the men's dorm. When he looked at Aiden's bed, he froze. Aiden had never come back. Completely confused, Jiang Hao wondered where someone as antisocial as Aiden could have spent the entire night. He immediately climbed onto Chen Feng's bunk and shook him awake. Chen Feng grumbled that he had been having a great dream before asking what was so urgent. Jiang Hao pointed at Aiden's empty bed and explained that he had been gone all night. Still half asleep, Chen Feng reminded him about the campus video and guessed that Aiden had probably gone out with Mushihan. Then he suddenly realized what he had just said. His eyes flew open. He quickly asked for the time. When Jiang Hao answered that it was already 6:30 in the morning, both of them fell silent. The thought of Aiden and Mushihan spending the entire night together left them completely stunned. After a long pause, Chen Feng nervously grabbed his phone and called Aiden. He was honestly worried Mushihan might have thrown him into a river after losing her temper. After a few rings, Aiden answered. Relieved, Chen Feng immediately asked where he was and why he had not returned all night. Before Aiden could reply, a girl's voice suddenly came from nearby. She asked if Aiden had seen her dress because she could not find it. Without thinking, Aiden casually reminded her that she had taken it into the bathroom a few minutes earlier. As soon as the call ended, Chen Feng and Jiang Hao stood there in complete shock. Chen Feng immediately asked if Aiden had really spent the entire night with Mushihan. Aiden calmly admitted that he had. Chen Feng nearly cried on the spot. He joked that his friend had completely fallen into Mushihan's hands before nervously asking if the two of them had even stayed in the same room. Aiden awkwardly replied that the situation was complicated and promised to explain everything later. For now, he just asked them not to mark him absent because they would be back at school soon. Before the conversation ended, Mushihan's voice came from nearby. She asked Aiden to help her because she could not fasten the clasp on the back of her dress. Aiden casually agreed and walked over. The call ended immediately afterward. Chen Feng and Jiang Hao stared at each other without saying a word. If the campus video had only started rumors, that phone call had completely convinced them. Jiang Hao could not believe it. In his eyes, Aiden had somehow won over the campus beauty. Hearing her ask him to help with her dress made it sound as if they had spent the entire night together. He simply could not understand how someone who spent most of his time sleeping or playing games had ended up so close to Mushihan. Chen Feng saw things differently. He immediately jumped out of bed and declared that from now on, Aiden deserved far more respect. After all, Mushihan was practically the princess of Changcheng. Meanwhile, across the city, a luxury motorhome was driving toward campus. Inside, Aiden struggled to fasten the zipper on the back of Mushihan's dress. After trying for a moment, He wondered if she had accidentally bought a size that was too small. Mushihon explained that she had bought it only a month earlier. Aiden immediately guessed that she must have gained a little weight since then. The comment made Mushihon furious. She insisted her figure was perfect and warned him never to call her fat again. Aiden casually replied that he was not her personal servant. The next second, tears began forming in Mushihon's eyes. She quietly warned that if he kept saying things like that, she was going to cry again. Aiden surrendered immediately. He admitted that her figure was absolutely perfect and begged her not to start crying. Seeing his reaction, Mushihon burst into laughter. She then told him to stop calling her by her full name and simply call her Shihan, just like her brother did. Aiden agreed, but he could not ignore how much she had changed. Only the night before, she had been furious at him over everything. Now she seemed unexpectedly gentle. About 30 minutes later, the luxury motorhome arrived at the university just as students were gathering for morning classes. The expensive vehicle immediately attracted everyone's attention. One after another, students stopped to stare as it pulled up directly in front of the main academic building. Inside the motorhome, Mushihon nudged the sleeping Aiden awake. She told him they had arrived. Aiden rubbed his eyes and complained that even after everything he had been through, he still had to attend morning classes. Mushihon reminded him that skipping too many classes would hurt his attendance, so he had no choice. The two stepped out of the vehicle. The moment they appeared, the students around them froze. Aiden looked at the crowd and jokingly asked if they had accidentally arrived at a zoo because everyone was staring at them like curious monkeys. The campus instantly exploded with whispers. Students quickly recognized Mushihon, and many also recognized Aiden from the viral video. To everyone watching, the two looked exactly like a couple. Mushihon stayed perfectly calm, clearly used to attracting attention. Aiden, on the other hand, quietly hid behind her, making the scene even funnier. As they reached the classroom, Chunfeng and Jiang Hao hurried over carrying breakfast. Chunfeng happily handed the food over, even remembering Mushihon's favorite custard buns and sweet tofu pudding. Surprised, Mushihon asked how he knew Aiden. Chunfeng proudly introduced himself as Aiden's roommate, before joking that, by extension, Mushihon was practically his sister-in-law. Aiden almost choked. He immediately corrected Chunfeng, insisting that he and Mushihon were only classmates. Mushihon's face turned slightly red, but she never actually denied the joke. Instead, she accepted the breakfast and reminded Aiden to change into clean clothes after class because he still smelled terrible after everything that had happened. She also told him not to forget dinner at her house that evening and warned him not to show up looking untidy. Without waiting for an answer, she confidently walked into the classroom. Aiden stood there, wondering when he had ever agreed to the invitation. After thinking about it for a moment, he remembered the bite mark Mushihon had left on his arm and decided he might as well go. Chunfeng wrapped an arm around Aiden's shoulders and jokingly praised him for winning over Mushihon after only one night. Aiden laughed bitterly. He explained that, instead of romance, he had almost been killed several times because of her. Once they entered the classroom, Aiden told his roommates everything that had happened the previous night. He described the kidnapping, the gang members, the gunfight, and how he had rescued Mushihon before accidentally shooting Mu Qingfeng. When he finished, both Chunfeng and Jiang Hao stared at him silently. After a long pause, Chunfeng sighed and admitted he understood wanting to keep a relationship secret, but the rest of the story sounded far too unbelievable. Even a novel would not dare pile that many dramatic events into a single night. Aiden insisted he was telling the truth, and proudly claimed he had become incredibly powerful. Chunfeng simply laughed and joked that anyone who managed to get close to Mushihon was impressive enough already. Meanwhile, back at the Mu family estate, Mu Qingfeng ignored the doctor's advice to rest. Instead, he gathered his men together, his expression colder than ever, as he prepared to give new orders. Mu Qingfeng ordered his men to investigate every business connected to the Zhang family in Changcheng. By tonight, he wanted every one of their operations to receive a warning. No one spoke. Everyone could tell their young master was truly angry this time. The Zhang family had crossed the line by kidnapping Mushihon, and he had no intention of letting it go. Just then, his private phone rang. A subordinate informed him that an important guest wanted to meet him for dinner that evening. The guest was Tan Tianxiong, the deputy chief of Changcheng. Mu Qingfeng's eyes narrowed. Everything suddenly made sense. The Zhang family's rapid rise in recent years had clearly been backed by Tan Tianxiong. Now, right after the kidnapping, this dinner invitation looked more like an attempt to protect them than a friendly meeting. After a brief silence, Mu Qingfeng changed his orders. He told his men to leave the Zhang family estate alone for now, but target every other business they owned. He also instructed them to involve the fire inspection department. As soon as the call ended, he dialed another number. Speaking respectfully to Uncle Han, he explained that Mushihan had been kidnapped and that powerful people were already trying to interfere. He asked for support in making sure those responsible were punished. The reply was calm but firm. Uncle Han assured him that no matter who tried to stand in the way, justice would be served. A cold smile appeared on Mu Qingfeng's face. Meanwhile, Aiden opened his eyes to find that night had already fallen. Looking at the cold flatbread sitting on his desk, he joked to himself that his sleep schedule was beyond saving. He could never sleep at night, yet somehow always slept through the day. Suddenly, the dorm door was kicked open. Mushihan walked in wearing a white dress, looking as fearless as ever. The first thing she did was declare that she was definitely going to deal with Aiden today. Aiden sighed and asked if she could please stop breaking into the men's dorm like that. Still annoyed, Mushihan told him to check his phone. She had called him 65 times without getting a single answer. After checking his missed calls, Aiden jokingly asked if she had downloaded a spam calling app just to harass him. Ignoring the joke, Mushihan told him to hurry up and get changed because they were leaving. Aiden casually started changing clothes right in front of her. It took Mushihan a second to realize what he was doing. Her face immediately turned bright red, and she rushed out of the room. Waiting downstairs, she called Mu Qingfeng and asked if dinner was ready because they were already on their way. Mu Qingfeng suddenly remembered he had another important dinner scheduled that evening. He apologized and suggested moving their family dinner to the next day. Mushihan refused without hesitation. She reminded him that Aiden had saved her life the previous night and insisted that nothing should be more important than thanking him properly. Mu Qingfeng explained that the dinner he was attending was actually related to getting justice for her kidnapping. The moment she heard that, Mushihan's eyes lit up. She immediately decided that both she and Aiden would be coming along. Mu Qingfeng knew arguing with his sister was pointless, so he finally gave in. He agreed to let them come, but warned both of them to watch what they said. They would be meeting at Lan Yu House. Meanwhile, inside the Jiang family estate, a loud slap echoed through the study. Jiang Yucheng held his burning cheek after being struck by his older brother, Jiang Tianming. Furious, Jiang Tianming pointed at him and demanded to know who had given him the idea of kidnapping the Mu family's daughter. Jiang Yucheng quickly defended himself, saying he had only wanted to help the family secure the downtown project. Jiang Tianming dismissed the excuse. He explained that Jiang Yucheng had been nothing more than a pawn. Young Master Wei had manipulated him to provoke the Mu family into targeting the Jiangs. Realizing he had been used, Jiang Yucheng hurriedly tried calling young Master Wei. The call never went through. He had already been blocked. Jiang Tianming shook his head in disappointment before telling him that a dinner had been arranged with Tan Tianxiong that evening. He ordered his younger brother to come along and personally apologize to the Mu family. About 30 minutes later, a Bentley sped toward the city. Inside the car, Mushihan adjusted Aiden's clothes and reminded him that Lan Yu House was no ordinary restaurant. She warned him not to act surprised or embarrass himself once they arrived. Aiden laughed it off, saying it was only a fancy restaurant and could not be that impressive. Mushihan rolled her eyes and called him a country bumpkin. She explained that ordinary people could not even enter the place. She was worried he would get excited and ask some celebrity for an autograph. Aiden straightened his posture and jokingly declared that he had no interest in celebrities. The only people he truly admired were those who served and protected the public. His answer made Mushihan laugh. For a brief moment, the way she looked at him became noticeably gentler. Soon the Bentley entered a quiet forest on the outskirts of Changcheng. Looking out the window, Aiden noticed a famous national scenic area nearby. Hidden among the towering trees stood a beautiful three-story building designed in a traditional style. At the top of the entrance, 3 golden characters read Lan Yu House. The parking lot alone left Aiden speechless. Luxury cars worth millions filled every space, making the place look more like an international auto show than a restaurant. Even reaching the entrance required passing strict security checks. Only members were allowed inside. Fortunately, the Mu family's status was enough. The guards recognized their vehicle immediately and opened the gate without asking any questions. Aiden felt like someone visiting a royal palace for the first time. Unable to hide his excitement, he nudged Mushihon and pointed toward the parking area. He excitedly asked if that really was a Koenigsegg, because he had never seen one in Changcheng before. Then he pointed somewhere else, amazed by a row of rare golden nanmu trees growing beside the building. While Aiden looked around in excitement, Mushihon suddenly grabbed him by the ear and told him to keep his voice down because he was embarrassing her. Aiden quietly complained that he was not even allowed to talk anymore. Still, he had to admit the place was incredible. Even the decorative plants were rare and valuable. Just looking around, he estimated that building a place like this must have cost hundreds of millions. At that moment, another luxury car arrived. A middle-aged man stepped out surrounded by several beautifully dressed actresses. Aiden thought the man's face looked familiar and was about to say something when Mushihon quickly interrupted him. She quietly explained that he was a famous film director. The actresses accompanying him had been brought to meet influential people involved in casting for upcoming productions. She gave Aiden a serious look and reminded him once again to behave himself. Before she could continue, the director walked over to greet them. He warmly greeted Mushihon, and she politely returned the greeting. The director explained that the Changcheng Cultural Bureau was producing a historical drama, so he had brought several promising actresses to meet the people making the final casting decisions. He then introduced Mushihon to everyone, mentioning that the Mu family had invested heavily in many of his productions. The actresses immediately greeted her with respect and asked if she was also having dinner there. Mushihon smiled gracefully and replied that she was there to meet her brother with a friend. She turned to introduce Aiden. Halfway through the introduction, she realized he had disappeared. Looking around, she found him happily chatting with the actresses. Aiden was enthusiastically offering to read their palms and tell their fortunes. Seeing that, Mushihon's elegant smile disappeared instantly. She marched over, grabbed Aiden by the arm, and dragged him back. Aiden innocently insisted that he had only been reading their palms. Ignoring him, Mushihon secretly pinched his side before calmly introducing him properly. She then introduced Director Zhang as one of the industry's most respected directors. Aiden immediately stepped forward with a cheerful smile and shook the director's hand. Since Mushihon had personally introduced him, Director Zhang naturally assumed Aiden came from an important background. Smiling politely, the director remarked that Aiden looked like a very promising young man and asked what he did. Aiden honestly admitted that he was just an ordinary student at Changcheng University. Then, without any hesitation, he added that if Director Zhang ever needed an actor, he would be happy to audition because he believed he could handle a major role. Director Zhang laughed sincerely. He told Aiden they had a deal. If a suitable role came up in the future, he would ask Mushihon for Aiden's contact information. After the director left, Aiden was still smiling to himself. He casually mentioned that one of the actresses had been Lin Manman and commented that her hands had felt incredibly soft. Mushihon's voice instantly turned cold. She quietly asked whether they had really been that soft. Without thinking, Aiden joked that he had not been able to tell because he had not held them long enough. Mushihon immediately shouted his name. The moment Aiden saw the look on her face, he knew he had pushed his luck. He quickly changed his answer, insisting that none of the actresses could compare to her. That part, at least, was true. No matter how bad her temper could be, Mushihon was still far more beautiful than anyone else he had met. Satisfied, she gave a quiet nod and told him to stop wasting time because her brother was probably already waiting. The two entered the building together. At the entrance, Aiden stopped in surprise when he noticed a full security checkpoint. He joked that the place felt more like an airport than a restaurant. Mushihon calmly explained that the scanners only checked for firearms and prohibited weapons. Lanya House had one strict rule: no violence. Anyone who broke it would be thrown out and permanently banned. She added that being blacklisted there was no small matter. Once it happened, even powerful people would slowly lose their influence in Changcheng. As an example, she mentioned a wealthy family that had fallen apart after one of its members drew a weapon inside the restaurant a few years earlier. While Aiden was listening, the scanner suddenly beeped. A security guard stopped him and informed him that he was carrying a fruit knife. Mushihon looked at him in disbelief and asked why anyone would bring a knife to a dinner. Aiden scratched his head and honestly explained that after everything that had happened the previous night, he figured carrying something for self-defense was only common sense. Since he could not legally carry a gun, a small knife had seemed like the next best option. Mushihon sighed and called him an idiot. Even so, she could not hide the small hint of appreciation in her eyes. Aiden handed the knife over to the guard, but seriously reminded him to take good care of it because he had paid good money for it. The guard stared at him speechlessly, while Mushihon covered her face in embarrassment and hurriedly dragged him away. They soon reached the second floor. A long hallway stretched before them, decorated in an elegant traditional style. Each private dining room had a poetic name, making the entire place feel as though it belonged to another era. As they walked, a painting on the wall suddenly caught Aiden's attention. He stopped in his tracks and quietly recited the opening line of a famous poem, completely absorbed by the artwork. Aiden quietly finished reciting the line from memory. Mushihon looked at him with surprise and asked since when someone like him had become interested in classical art. Aiden frowned thoughtfully. He admitted he did not know much about art, but the handwriting on the painting felt strangely familiar. He had a vague feeling he had seen something similar hanging in his family's study. Mushihon did not believe him at all. She told him that this style of calligraphy belonged to an entirely different level and was not something an ordinary family would own. Aiden shrugged and insisted that, believe it or not, his family was actually one of the prominent households in the South. Just then, a graceful woman wearing a white qipao walked downstairs. The moment Aiden saw her, he froze. She looked strangely familiar. Without thinking, he asked if they had met somewhere before. The woman smiled politely and teased him that the pickup line sounded rather old-fashioned. She even joked that saying something like that in front of his girlfriend was quite bold. Mushihon immediately became nervous. In a low voice, she warned Aiden that the woman was Su Ya, the general manager of Lanyu House, and told him to watch what he said. She then politely greeted Su Ya. Su Ya returned the greeting with the same elegance. Not wanting any more awkward moments, Mushihon grabbed Aiden's hand and pulled him away. Even as they walked off, Aiden kept looking back, insisting he genuinely felt he knew Su Ya from somewhere. Mushihon pinched his side hard and warned him not to get close to her. She explained that Su Ya was one of the most influential and mysterious figures in Changcheng, someone nobody should underestimate. Aiden jokingly asked if she was acting that way because she liked him. Mushihon's face immediately turned red as she clumsily denied it. After the two disappeared into a private room, Su Ya watched them leave with narrowed eyes. She quietly took out her phone and made a call, saying that something interesting had just happened. Inside the private dining room, Mu Qingfeng was already chatting pleasantly with Tan Tianxiong. Nearby, Jiang Qianming and Jiang Yucheng stood silently, looking far less confident than before. Mu Qingfeng deliberately ignored the Jiang brothers and continued speaking with Tan Tianxiong as though they were not even there. Jiang Yucheng's anger almost got the better of him, but Jiang Qianming quickly stopped him. Just then, Aiden and Mushihon entered the room. Mu Qingfeng was in the middle of discussing the upcoming bidding for the downtown project with Tan Tianxiong. As the conversation continued, Mu Qingfeng presented an expensive sandalwood fan as a gift. Tan Tianxiong politely tried to refuse at first, but once the fan was placed in his hands, he could not resist opening it. The moment he saw the artwork and calligraphy on the fan, his expression subtly changed. He quietly folded it back up, hiding whatever thoughts had just crossed his mind. After a brief pause, Tan Tianxiong forced a smile and praised the sandalwood fan as an extraordinary treasure. At that moment, Aiden and Mushihon walked into the private room. They apologized for arriving late. Mu Qingfeng gave his sister a helpless look before introducing Tan Tianxiong as deputy chief of Changcheng and telling her to call him Uncle Tan. Mushihon politely greeted him. She then introduced Aiden as her classmate. Throughout the introductions, the Jiang brothers were completely ignored. Smiling warmly, Tan Tianxiong invited Mushihong to sit, saying everyone present was practically family. Mushihong answered with a calm smile, but her words carried obvious sarcasm. She questioned how they could call themselves family when the man responsible for kidnapping her was standing in the same room. The atmosphere instantly became tense. Left with no choice, Tan Tianxiong turned toward Jiang Tianming. Jiang Tianming immediately stood up and sincerely apologized on behalf of his younger brother, admitting that what had happened was unforgivable. Mushihong showed no sign of accepting it. She coldly asked whether kidnapping the entire Jiang family for one night and then apologizing over dinner would somehow make everything acceptable. Tan Tianxiong's expression darkened. He ordered Jiang Yucheng to kneel and apologize properly. Although completely humiliated, Jiang Yucheng had no choice under the pressure from both his brother and Tan Tianxiong. He knelt before Mushihong and reluctantly admitted his mistake while asking for forgiveness. Watching from the side, Aiden looked completely confused. He quietly asked Mushihong why someone was suddenly kneeling. She calmly explained that Jiang Yucheng was the one who had arranged her kidnapping. The moment Aiden heard that, his expression changed. He instinctively stepped forward. Both Mu Qingfeng and Mushihong grabbed him at the same time, urging him to stay calm. Aiden barely managed to suppress his anger. He knew this was Lan Yu House, where fighting was absolutely forbidden. Just then, the system suddenly appeared again. It gave him a new mission. He had 30 seconds to disable Jiang Yucheng or face another punishment from the system. Aiden nearly lost his mind. He silently complained that the system had picked the worst possible place for a mission like this. Meanwhile, Jiang Yucheng looked up from the floor and arrogantly mocked him, daring Aiden to make a move. That was the final push. Aiden broke free from Mu Qingfeng and Mushihong in a single motion. He calmly accepted the challenge. Without another word, he stepped forward and delivered one devastating kick straight to Jiang Yucheng's most vulnerable spot. A painful scream echoed throughout the private room. Then everything fell completely silent. That single kick instantly ruined whatever peaceful solution Mu Qingfeng had been planning. Jiang Tianming looked at his brother curled up on the floor and exploded with rage, accusing Aiden of trying to end the Jiang family bloodline. Mu Qingfeng immediately tried to calm the situation, but by then, Jiang Tianming had completely lost control. Jiang Tianming completely ignored every attempt to calm him down. He angrily declared that he was calling his own men. Just as the room reached a deadlock, a calm voice suddenly came from behind the decorative screen. The speaker greeted Tan Tianxiong as though they were old acquaintances. Everyone turned at once. A dignified, middle-aged man slowly walked out from behind the screen. The moment Tan Tianxiong saw him, his expression changed completely. It was Han Lixing, the chief of Changcheng. No one had realized he had been sitting there the entire time. Han Lixing looked at Tan Tianxiong with obvious disappointment and questioned whether using the downtown project to pressure others was really his idea of fairness. After shutting down Tan Tianxiong, Han Lixing made the final decision. Jiang Yucheng would be sent to the hospital first, but afterward, he would surrender himself to the authorities for arranging the kidnapping. As for Aiden attacking Jiang Yucheng, Han Lixing made one thing very clear. He stated that Aiden had acted on his own and that the incident had nothing to do with the Mu family. Jiang Tianming immediately objected, arguing that Aiden was clearly associated with them. Instead of arguing back, Han Lixing simply asked Aiden for his name. Aiden answered without hesitation. He introduced himself and openly admitted that he had kicked Jiang Yucheng because he believed the man deserved it. He also emphasized that his actions were entirely his own and had nothing to do with the Mu family. Rather than getting angry, Han Lixing smiled slightly. He pointed out that Aiden did not share the Mu family name, so there was no reason to hold them responsible for his personal actions. With that, both Jiang Yucheng and Aiden were escorted away. Before long, Aiden found himself sitting inside a police station, handcuffed to a chair.